say it's one of those things where I would have loved if they just kept Slimer out of the trailer.
There's actually a lot of things I'd love to see out of the
But
trailer.
like, that's one of those little elements where it's like, let people enjoy that.
That's a frightened executive that says, you gotta put that in there because I don't know if this is gonna do any good, and I gotta make sure that they know.
Stop ruining stuff. Stop it.
Stop ruining surprises.
It's the Untitled Film Project Podcast, and we be Ghostbusting. We're talking about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. The cast of Ghostbusters Afterlife from 2021 is back, and they are joined by the original 80s Ghostbusters cast to fight an evil entity that threatens to unleash every ghost ever caught to do its bidding.
I've been waiting 40 years for this. They called themselves Ghostbusters.
We're gonna need all the help we can get.
Let's get to work.
Tall, dark, and horny at 12 o'clock.
And we have the big question.
The big question is, because this is obviously an example of the older cast kind of passing the torch to the younger cast officially, in the sense that they both team up to do the job in this one, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're kind of just pondering the question, what movie, franchise, or film would you like to see reintroduce, like basically reset with a new cast?
So put your thinking caps on, grab your proton packs, and let's go.
I was so worried because I wanted to love it. But that second trailer, that last trailer that dropped, was so pandering. And it was so forced nostalgia. And it was like they're pulling out all the stops here, and that makes me really worried.
Right.
Luckily, we got a good film.
Okay.
So we were talking before the movie about the trailer and about some fan service, which it's Ghostbusters. There's going to be fan service. Like,
sure.
There has to be fan service, right?
In the 2021 version, there was. But
Yes.
it was done in such a way that wasn't in your face.
Right.
Yeah.
This one, to me, my initial take was this one felt more like a Ghostbusters movie. Afterlife was the reintroduction of the lore. And so that's why it felt maybe a little slow at times, but it was dark. It was intriguing. There was you're seeing little hints of things, right? The fan service of the musical notes or the jumpsuits or things like that. You're getting reintroduced to it because people had forgotten about it.
Right. Shandor's Mines.
Yes.
They bring Shandor up in the original film.
Yeah.
So they reconnect everything, which I did enjoy. I like that.
And it looked and felt like the 80s versions.
Right. This one felt more nostalgic and felt more like a Ghostbusters movie to me because you're back in New York City.
Yes.
And you're hearing the sights and the sounds of it. The ghosts are there. They're on calls again. And I like that they took the jump to establish, okay, they're in the ghost busting business again instead of just kicking it off right where they left off.
Right.
I love how there was a time jump so we don't have to go through that again of, they have to get back up and going. No, it's established. They're up and going.
Right.
Winston has funded this. They're up and doing things. They're fighting ghosts. They're on calls and they bring back, the EPA guy and all this stuff. He's the mayor, everything. Overall, I enjoyed it. It's an enjoyable movie. It's funny. There are plenty of good one-liners in here that made me laugh out loud because I couldn't help but laugh. Paul Rudd is just enjoyable and adorable and fits perfectly into the role that he was cast in as well. This one, like what Gover was saying, it's hard to put one as the star. This is definitely one of those ensemble cast type of things. And I think what I did enjoy was they actually balanced old and new pretty well.
It's like two ensembles almost.
Yeah, two ensembles. They meshed them together really well, but didn't overmesh. Like Bill Murray had his Bill Murray moments.
Yes.
But they didn't force him into things that he didn't generally belong in. That he served his purpose overall very well, and they didn't just try to force him in because it's Bill Murray. No, he had his quips, and they were funny, and they just let the story continue to move on. Dan Aykroyd is more of that glue piece because he's the original star, really, when you think of Ghostbusters, right? He's the one with the knowledge, and you have Spengler, who is the scientist, the nerd. But Dan Aykroyd's character is the star. He's the glue piece, the centerpiece of Ghostbusters, and they made him that mesh. He was the one that brought it together.
The thread.
Right, he was that thread through it all. So overall, I enjoyed it. It was funny. Is this groundbreaking in any sort of way? No, but it doesn't have to be. What this movie had to accomplish was just to be entertaining, be funny, be Ghostbusters, and have some rewatchability, and I think it accomplishes that. So overall, I liked it.
Very nice. The 2021 Ghostbusters Afterlife, I always kind of felt like it was two things. It was like kind of, I loved the way they were able to bring back the look and feel from the original 80s movies, right? And the thing I didn't like about it was like everything about it was fine. Just nothing was really special. And I kind of felt like they said, hey, they were pitched the Afterlife movie as we're going to do Ghostbusters, but we're going to kind of do Stranger Things. And we even got one of the kids from the show that's going to be in it. Because it's a kid cast, right?
Yeah.
That carried that whole movie.
Yes.
Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon, who are the parental figures, they enter into it, but it's mostly the kids. And when I saw Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I just was giddy because it had what Afterlife didn't have, which was some punch. And that was the original cast doing what the original cast does best with a few extras. Camille Johnny, what I felt I saw was a ton of really good comedic actors doing their thing. I laughed very hard at a lot of stuff in this movie, and there has not been a whole lot of comedies that have come out in years that have gotten me to laugh that much out loud. So I really was into this latest. I mean, they hit it. They did what they had to do, and I was there for it.
What I'm hearing from a lot of people is that last trailer that was released has frightened people a little bit of that it's going to be bad.
It terrified me.
Like, it's going to be bad. But no, this had good balance, and it's not taking itself too seriously. They had fun with it. Even the Slimer element, they had fun with it, but didn't do too much. It's just, he's with them now. He's in the attic, and they have Finn Wolfhard's character just trying to buddy with him to feel that out. But they didn't overdo it. He had little callbacks, but I didn't feel like it was too forced.
Right.
And I think that's what's important, is that you're going to have nostalgia. There's the line that they throw in here with Paul Rudd that Gover is very worried about.
Buster makes me feel good. Makes me feel good.
And I'm like, holy crap, that's horrible.
And
it's just
as soon as the
horrible.
movie starts, they address that Ghostbusters pop culture is canon.
Ray Parker Jr., they show him.
Yeah, they show it.
In a flashback clip.
The cartoons, the newspaper clippings, the cereals, the food, everything, it becomes part of canon. Therefore, it makes more sense to have cheesy lines like delivered.
It was a brilliant move.
They were just referencing a song. They're referencing the pop culture of the time.
And the scene itself plays out really well.
Yes.
It plays out very Paul Ruddy.
Very much.
Right.
But again, there's a lot of charm in that.
I love it.
It can be cheesy. It can be dad jokey.
Right.
Yeah.
But he pulls it off in a way that, let's say, bad example alert, John Malkovich couldn't.
One thing that stood out to me, and I want to get your opinion on this, is that as I'm watching this, I'm enjoying myself. But there's something about villain arcs that movies sometimes struggle with.
Yeah.
I thought the first two acts were much stronger than the third, because I feel like it lost a little bit of steam when the villain finally comes to be, and it took a little while to get to that point, because this didn't feel like a Ghostbusters movie where the whole city of New York was reacting. It felt more like it's just going right after the station.
Right.
And I'm really not trying to nitpick here, because I overall enjoyed the whole movie, right? But I was just like so amped up, and then finally the villain reveal, which I feel like there were some practical effects used with it too, plus CGI, which I do appreciate, because Ghostbusters was very good with practical effects, right?
Right.
But it felt like the first two acts really had the steam going, and the third act fell a little flatter than the first two. Did you get any of that feel at all when it came to like the villain fight?
Yeah, a little bit, because I think that's where it becomes a bunch of other movies.
Right.
Okay. So here's one of my few complaints about the movie was the final fight the big bad guy, right? And there were too many, this is our last chance. I know that thing just didn't work, but we've got this other idea to try to take him down, and it's our last chance, and we're going to tell you that. And that doesn't work either. And then we go to the other last chance. And it feels like they did that about 4 or 5 times. I don't know how many, I didn't count, but it felt like too many. So yeah, that's where I thought, it just became like every other movie where you're going to fight the bad guy at the end. And
it's tough to get around that.
I don't know what the answer is to it, but I hope that more clever people than me are in Hollywood and can create something. And I think up till that point, they did.
They really had. Gover, did you have any opinion on that?
I thought it ended relatively quickly. I don't mean runtime. I just mean like it was
Right.
like, oh, it's over.
That's it.
Like, and that was kind of weird because usually it's like the big climactic scene, and there were elements of that. Okay, but I think at the end you're like, oh, all right, and so that kind of left a little bit of a weird taste in my mouth. Not enough to bag the movie,
No.
but just like, okay, like, you think they would have, I don't know, upped the drama a little bit, and then just kind of like, okay, it's over.
So I wanted a little less. You wanted a little more.
Yeah.
Never fails.
Well, maybe that's the perfect medium they found. Right? They didn't satisfy either of us. So I don't know.
So what do you think about the mini Stay Puffs?
Uh,
Good with it?
I
Too
thought
much?
they were perfect this
in
movie.
one? Okay.
Because in the first movie, it's a marketing ploy,
right.
right? It's just to sell little mini Stay Puft toys or whatever the thing is. Kind of like the Porgs in The Last Jedi.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's just like, they don't really need to be there. But they're cute. So, hey,
So, I'm always the one that typically brings up this part because I'm curious all the time. And as of the recording of this, it is not publicly available yet. So the only thing on Rotten Tomatoes is our critic scores. There are 98 reviews as of this recording, and it's at a 46%. I find that curious.
I was a little shocked. I checked it earlier in the day. It was 43, so it's rising.
Yeah, Afterlife.
Progress.
Afterlife finished with a 64%. I expected it to be somewhere in the 60s.
That's about
because
right.
this is not something that critics are going to
Yeah.
love and rave
I
over.
loved Afterlife, but that's about right.
Are critics going into a movie like this expecting to be master cinema, and that's what they're comparing it to? What is the issue with something like this?
I still think the answer is what I've held true to. I think it's show me something different, and you didn't. I think it's that simple.
It
doesn't matter
Critics
if it's-
need it. They need something different. They're tired of. They've seen so many movies that they need to see something different in order to be even slightly excited about a movie.
I guess I just put something like this in perspective.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. Like not expectations, but perspective.
Yeah, that's
What the movie is meant to accomplish.
that's the thing, right? Like, I know going in, this is going to be a fun summer blockbuster type
Yeah,
comedy action movie.
exactly.
Okay,
A little bit of darkness.
I'm not expecting it to be Pulp Fiction and Usual Suspects.
No.
Okay,
Sure.
No.
Yeah.
But if you're making, and that's what Rotten Tomatoes basically does, right?
Right.
If it basically makes
Aggregate,
everything
yeah.
even.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's about what you're into, what you're interested in.
Totally. Yeah.
So
I'll be curious once it goes public to see when more
Yeah,
people review
for
it.
sure.
It's just I always like to bring that up for discussion because it is very curious to me on aggregate scores on things that us three at least enjoyed.
We know
On different levels, I'm sure. Once we
Yes.
get to our scores, different levels enjoyed it. But is it enough to be rotten?
I was kind of shocked, but I do know it's early.
I didn't expect it to be high either, but I expected it
Right.
at least be in this like 60 or something like that.
I think it'll get there. I think it will. I think it's too early to tell.
I just think the movie overall is charming. It's charming enough to be enjoyable and rewatchable too.
Yeah.
Like, there's elements of this where I'm like, yeah, I'll go watch that again. I liked it.
Oh, I can't
only,
wait to go back
Only
with
an
my family.
hour 50 runtime.
Yeah.
I mean that right there too is like, yeah, I could totally do that again.
Refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They actually had some discipline and didn't make a 3.5 hour epic out of
And it didn't seem like
Ghostbusters
weird
movie.
editing to where it felt like they awkwardly cut stuff out that would have been integral to the story either.
I would actually argue the opposite way. There's
Really?
a few scenes that you're like, really? Does that need to be in there?
Oh, like they could have cut more.
Yeah.
Oh no, I
mean,
was just saying like
not a ton, but I mean,
yeah, I
right.
didn't want more. I didn't need more.
Yes.
Nothing felt like, oh, if they would just extended that, it would have
Yes.
made more sense. No, I can see that. It could have been an hour 40, but I'm not going to take it against it because just getting under 2 hours for a summer blockbuster in the spring, I'll take it.
Yep.
That means maybe our standards have lowered because they've beaten us over the head with just awful long movies out of Hollywood. Especially, it seemed like last year. Besides the big blockbusters, with the Barbenheimer and stuff, the drop was big.
Well, how about this? Ghostbusters Afterlife was 2 hours 4 minutes. Ghostbusters 1, hour 47. Ghostbusters 2, hour 48. They got back to a sweet spot, I think.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that was typical of movies in the 80s.
Oh, totally.
It
But to
was.
get back to an hour 50 for a movie like this, where
Yeah, no,
easily you can make
I
it
agree.
a 2:10,
I agree.
2:05.
I think it's great. Yeah. I think that's discipline. That's good editing, good writing. If you know what you're doing, you can do it in less time. Yep. Some movies need more. I'm not putting down, anything that needed it or where it was like Killers of the Flower Moon needed to be the length that it was, right?
Right.
And that's correct.
Oppenheimer needed to be the length of it was.
Absolutely. But, if
Argyle did not need to be 2.5 hours
No,
long.
it did not. And you could, I think, take a basic editing software program and anyone out there could make that movie a lot better by cutting a lot out of it. We've talked about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, but it's now time to put a number to this film. And let's start with Mr. Bradford.
Okay. So overall, like I said, when we've been saying, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the music as well too. Like that's what made me feel like a Ghostbusters movie. I felt like they did a good job with the score. And yes, they're taking elements from the originals, right? You have the little scenes, the little cut scenes as well with the music. But even the rest of the score felt nostalgic, felt very 80s movie score. So that coupled with the New York, coupled with everything else, it felt Ghostbusters to me. And I really did like that type of nostalgia being included in the music. That makes it for me. Like any of these movies where you have a franchise that spanned 4 decades, like that, you have to have nostalgia in it for it to continue to serve the fans properly.
Yeah.
So that's important to me. I'm listening for those types of things. And yeah, I'm the nerd that's doing that, but that's what I'm listening for, is are they taking in the right elements to make you feel nostalgic without shoving it down your throat?
I think people were, they're having the same thing. They're not thinking about it like you, but they still want those things.
Exactly. And I'm just vocalizing,
Yeah.
right? I'm putting it into words.
Right.
People kind of want that feel. That is, music is part of that feel. This felt like that based on the music. I even feel like some of the newer ghosts felt more classic. Like even that dragon or that snake monster, whatever it is, that they were fighting at the very, very beginning, that felt more like a Ghostbusters ghost kind of thing, just elevated for new technology, things like that. But then you also bring in Slimer and all these other elements too. Loved those elements. I also like the historical part of it, where they started off with the history of this thing too. It sets the tone for the movie and what they're referencing instead of flashbacks or anything like that. It's like, let's just start off with the origin of the villain in 1904 New York. Take 5 minutes to set it up, and then it lasts throughout the rest of the movie.
That was great.
One of the better like expositions, backstories of the villain you're going to see later than I've seen in movies in years. Because I mean, how often with Black Adam and just like things.
That's what you're. Oh,
I mean, like just like the difference.
Yes,
is the pendulum.
Well, a little bit of the darkness because it's a PG-13, right? But then you just have the hand detached from the arm, and it gives you a little bit of scary. But it's not enough to make people go, "Oh, I can't take my kid to see this."
Playful scary.
It's playful scary.
Afterlife was actually scarier.
Yes, I agree. Afterlife was scarier, but that's the thing that Ghostbusters has always done well is you have to make a good PG-13 movie that you have a little bit of fright, but it's funny fright to where you're not scarring kids for life, and it makes them actually fall in love with it.
Yeah,
it's a great introduction to some spookiness happening on the screen. So McKenna Grace, she has continued. I mean, we've seen her since she was a child. I mean, Fuller House. She's been in multiple TV shows. She's been in so many things, and now she's continued to grow. And I keep forgetting it's her because she's a blonde. And in here, she has the dark curly hair and making her like. It's really interesting. She's going to continue to get bigger.
I think she's got quite a good career ahead of her.
She has a very good career ahead of her. Like it is, you can just see the elements there too because she can play drama as well. You can see the emotion in her face. She can take a script and really work with it. She's only 17. Yeah, that she has plenty of promise in her career going forward. It was good to see the OGs be there and not try to take over. Like on the screen, the way it was written, they were there and they didn't try to. There was nothing that felt like they were trying to write them in to steal any scene. They were there to actually accompany, is what it really did feel like. They were there to assist and to help, kind of building off of Afterlife, where they arrived at the end. There was no part of it where it's like there has to be a handoff or anything like that. No, they're accepting retirement. Winston is in his own thing, still in it, but he's not a Ghostbuster anymore. Same thing with Bill Murray. They're not there to Ghostbust. They come out when they have to, but they've handed it over cleanly. Yep. There's none of that missing that or anything like this, which I like because you're not having that battle between the two casts Not that I'm saying
Right.
there is, but there's no battle on screen between the original and the new. They've let it go. It's
complementary.
Exactly.
as
And I
opposed to,
appreciate that
battle.
they've written it that way. So you're not even feeling as an audience member watching it that, oh, the OGs deserve so much more credit. No, they've handed it over. They're fine with it.
Yeah.
So overall, I enjoyed it a lot. It's rewatchable. I cannot wait to see it again. Is it peak cinema? No, it's not. But it accomplished what it had to be. I give it a 7.
Very good.
Okay.
I really enjoyed this movie, and I think it just goes to show you we've been starved for something like this, and there's been misfires, Jurassic World Dominion, like there's just so many examples of things where it didn't work out, and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire to me was just a delight. I haven't laughed that hard in so long. There are scenes in there, like you talked about, like where they don't hand off or have a battle between the old cast and the new cast. Like there's the scene where Bill Murray is, giving, he's confronting Camille Andrade's, character to see if he's got a demon in him, and he's just going through like survey questions, but it's gold. Like the questions, the reactions, the answers. It was just so good.
Just the lean over the shoulder, like that one little shot to see the
Yes.
flame and him leaning over the shoulder. That's Bill Murray. Like it's within him. It makes you laugh. Is just physical humor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just Bill Murray being Bill Murray. You let him do that, and we haven't gotten to see like the 80s Bill Murray since the 80s. And I felt like, oh my God, we went back in time and got like more. I was really happy with this movie, and I don't think that it was not too much jammed into one film. I just thought, when you get everybody who's the best at what they do, great screenwriters, great actors, it's great new actors, these stand-up comedians who have honed their craft, and they just made a movie that just made me laugh out loud. And I can't remember the last time I did that much. So I'm going to give you a qualifying score. I'm going to say, if you're a Ghostbusters fan,
Okay.
I'm giving this movie an 8 because I thought it was excellent. Now, if you're not a Ghostbusters fan and you like the original movies don't have any hold for you, and you didn't see 2021's Afterlife, which a lot of people didn't because, pandemic, right? This movie is going to probably just be okay. But I think if you're a fan, it scores and it soars.
Okay. Well,
Go over.
as I mentioned before, I was so excited when I found out this movie was actually going to happen. And there's a sequel planned, and I was like, oh, it's going to be so great. First trailer drops. I am pumped. Then the last trailer drops, and I was terrified that the boardroom had gotten to this thing, and they had screwed it up
to death.
because we'd seen that, a dozen times last year at least, where a movie was perfectly well and good, probably, and then the board said, "Hell, actually, you should put this in. Actually, you should put that in," and then they ruined it.
Right.
We've seen it over and over again recently, so I thought, oh, here we go. Plus, it's a March release.
Right.
It's like, and it has all the DNA of a summer blockbuster, right? So it's a March release.
Maybe
Again,
they
that trailer drops, and it's all a bunch of fan service and like over the top, trying to be funny, and it's not. And I was like, oh no, they've ruined it. They didn't. I'm very, very happy to report that. I love the nod to the animated series with Janine's arm cannon.
That's right.
That was a cool little piece of.
Forgot about that.
They didn't call it out.
Yep.
They didn't say like.
But the audience reacted. Ghostbusters fans in that crowd reacted.
Yes, for sure. Right. But that is what those things should be.
Yes.
They should be little things that if you know, you know, and if you don't, it doesn't ruin the movie.
100%.
And Afterlife had a lot of that. Afterlife had a lot of those little nods that
Just when they're panning, you would see things when
Yes.
they're panning across. You didn't have to know.
No.
But if you did, it's even better.
If you did, you're like, oh, that adds some value to it, right?
Right.
So anyway, so Janine's arm cannon was really cool. I was disappointed, guys, that we didn't see any of the old ghosts because they really leaned into, well, they want to, if this entrapment goes off, if this trap goes offline, then every ghost we've ever caught is going to show. So I thought there was going to be like the hot dog cart Slimer and then the taxi cab driver from the thing.
Vigo.
Yeah, maybe Vigo. I just, I thought I thought we'd see at least, those would be the cameos. That's what I
Right.
thought. At
Now,
the end of the movie, there'd be a bunch of cameos.
I will say it's one of those things where I would have loved if they just kept Slimer out of the trailer.
There's actually a lot of things I'd love to see out of the
But
trailer.
like that's one of those little elements where it's like let people enjoy that
yes.
Yeah.
organically.
Especially because it was cheesy.
Right, seeing Slimer in a trailer, I don't think that's going to make people buy the ticket.
No.
Yeah.
So keep it away. Keep it away.
That's a frightened executive that says you got to put that in there because I don't know if this is going to do any good, and I got to make sure that they know this is from the original.
You know what the problem with that is? Now that executive says, look at how successful it is. That's because I made that call. And that's the problem.
That's
Well,
all right.
we'd have to have more people calling it out though. Stop ruining great moments.
It's enough.
I think
Stop it.
I think a lot of people aren't watching trailers like we are.
But there are a lot of people that do.
Okay.
No.
No,
But
so
that's
For
maybe you're
franchises
right.
like this,
For
anything Marvel, that's Disney,
No, you're
Star
right.
Wars.
But that's the point of trailers, though.
Right.
The point
Yeah.
of trailers is to get people to the theater. So if the whole point of that, whether they're watching them or not, that's the problem. Is they're oh God, it's terrible. Please stop doing it. Stop ruining stuff. Stop it.
Stop ruining surprises.
It's meant to be a surprise. It's meant to be have you have this good feeling. And there were so many parts in this movie that were in the trailer that you didn't hear a reaction in the crowd as much that you would have heard had you left that.
Especially some of the one-liners, some of the quips from Paul Rudd, even where
Yep.
it's like, "This would have been a moment in the theater. It would have 100% been a moment."
The Slimer when he goes through him and he spits out the slime and he goes, "Yeah," or whatever his line was, right? That probably gets a laugh if you haven't seen it before.
Yep,
Right.
But you ruined it.
Even the ones where where Paul Rudd singing the songs.
Yes,
that would have had a bigger audience reaction. Instead, it was a
it was a chuckle.
I already saw it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just really disappointing. There's a very delicate. It's my last point. There's a very delicate balance, you guys, between, as you know, pandering and being clever.
Right.
And this movie walks right up to that line, puts its toe over the line.
no.
Can
Look,
I do it too?
it's a little more vanilla than Afterlife, and I gave Afterlife a 7.5, so I'm going to give Frozen Empire a 7.0.
So you actually you like Afterlife better than Frozen Empire?
Yes.
Interesting.
Wow. Okay.
I like this one more, but I still really like Afterlife.
I was just saying this is a matter of degrees of like.
No,
Right. So I'm not saying Afterlife.
Are we
is bad.
in like, or are we just like?
let's check one.
I just want to be friends.
Time for the big question. And on this episode, you guys, the question is, what movie, franchise, or film would you like to see rebooted with a younger cast? Basically, you're hitting the reset button, right?
As they kind of did with Afterlife.
For sure. And we've seen that a couple times on certain things. I'll start with this one just because I want to lay the groundwork here. I'm going a little bit weird.
Okay.
And that weird is Sister Act.
Really? Yeah.
I'm a big fan of comedies. That was a big hit in the day. You could probably argue that was Whoopi Goldberg's last hit, like real hit movie.
Sure.
She does some successful things, but movie like she's the lead, got to go see it. Whoopi, that was the end of her reign, and it was awesome. And so I think you could redo that with a 2024, 25, 26 flavor, update it a little bit, right? And I think you could have a successful comedy on your hands.
Okay.
So Sister Act is my answer.
And there is so much vocal talent
Yes.
out there.
Yes.
You're even talking like a Halle Bailey,
Yes.
potentially. There's so many, her.
There's a lot of great, young actors that would really
boy.
thrive in that situation. And this really shocks me that you picked this because you're the one who I think in the last 4 episodes, probably you've mentioned how much you don't like music in movies, and you picked a movie that basically is focused. You probably wanted the songs removed from The Sound of Music. That's how much you don't like music in movies.
Going on.
I said musicals. Sister Act is not a musical. I do enjoy music in movies, just not musicals.
It isn't a musical.
It's not a musical.
It's a movie with music.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
There is a difference. Damn it, I got to side with Gover.
it happens every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Sister Act is my answer.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go with Fast and Furious. We can just keep it rolling. No.
Smokey and the Bandit.
Let's go ahead and reboot it now so we can go ahead and get to Fast and Furious 30.
Actually, have them going in the round. You know what I mean?
Might as
Like,
well.
the younger cast
Keep
is
like
going,
it.
and they're
Yes,
still
no.
putting out the old ones.
There's also Howard the Duck. No. Highland. No. John Carter.
Angry Old Men.
There can only be one Highlander, Bradford. There can't be two.
Okay.
Give
no.
him a second.
My real answer is the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to see that rebooted so it's good.
Exactly.
right.
Yes.
That it deserves so much more. There's so much source material because it's a comic book.
Yeah.
I wanted to sue the
there's so
first one
much.
because it
Yeah,
was not
yes.
extraordinary.
So much potential.
It's lying.
Exactly. There's potential in this type of movie because it's a superhero movie in a different spin. Like there's a whole different kind of spin on this. There's so much potential, and I think maybe they tried to do it too early.
Right?
Yeah. This type of movie too early. You think about this is around the same time when Treasure Planet came out, when Atlantis came out, and those Disney films did not do that well when they came out. And now they're much more popular now. They're a little bit more outside the box in terms of an animated movie here, in terms of superhero movies, a little more outside the box. You think the OG Spider-Man came out right around this time to Tobey Maguire, which is traditional superhero movie. This is way not a traditional superhero type of movie. I mean, it was so poorly received that it was a 17 critics and a 44 audience.
Yeah.
But it deserves to have its shot again. Now that we're 2 decades removed, it's a whole new generation. They have the source material. You could recast this, and I do think you could make the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen good.
Instead of just Ordinary Gentlemen, which was the first one.
Subordinary.
Well, that is pretty cool. I like these ideas so far. I'm buying into them. I'll see right now if you guys are buying into mine. I would like to see, with a younger cast, a kind of passing the torch from another generation of great actors, the Ocean's Caper movies. Give me an Ocean's 11 with some of the great young stars that we have right now. And I think you've got something really special because we haven't had a good caper theft movie that, has that snap move. Like every one of those characters had charisma. They added something. It was fun. And there's some suspense. How are they going to be able to pull this off? You put people in there like, Zendaya and just all these great young actors and actresses. I think that movie would, if done right, would just kill.
Go ahead.
Austin Butler needs to be in it.
Absolutely. He's in everything.
Because because of his delivery, his mannerisms, his smoothness would 100% fit in that type of movie too. I know he fits in so many movies because I really do like Austin Butler as an actor. He needs to be in that.
Yeah.
I'm right here when I was doing that, I was pondering who I'd cast. I already started doing that.
Let me ask you this though. Is it too soon?
For Oceans?
Yeah.
No.
Well, they just did an Ocean's 8.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
last decade.
But you know what? Nobody paid any attention to it.
Right.
So I think they came out and the world didn't notice. So you got that. So they don't count. You have a greater span of time between the original Ocean's movies and say if you started filming one now. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think people just remember the idea of the Ocean's movies and maybe the first couple.
Okay, so real quick here. This was published just back in January that apparently Ocean's 11 director Steven Soderbergh was offered a chance to return for prequel. I told them no.
So they're not going to do it. Mine is only an academic endeavor.
No. A reboot suggests,
but
prequel is different.
Is rehashing it in a different way.
Right.
Yeah. Prequel
So you're not
makes
doing the same characters.
Because you'd have to recast it in people that would fit as the younger versions of the original.
Who's going to be the young George Clooney?
Yeah, that'd be too hard.
That would be
Right, so if you continue it on in
Yeah.
a different manner in terms of hey, let's have another caper, but keep it under the Ocean's franchise, which they can still tie because even Ocean's 8's tied it back in.
You could call
somehow.
It's Danny and Tessa's kid. That's how you do it. I don't know if I do it now, but I would do it in probably 5 or 10 years.
I didn't watch
I'd be
after
game
the
for it.
first few. I just like the quality was.
But I'd be game for it.
No.
Go
I
way
agree.
down.
11's an all timer.
I'd be game. I'm game
Okay.
for it.
What's the movie that you would like to see recast with younger actors? We want to know. Comment. Tell us. What did we miss? There's some obvious ones that we didn't take point them out to us. We love the interaction.
Thank you for listening to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. To support the show, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe. Original music by Jeremy Schwartz. Special thanks to the Music City Film Critics Association. Editing and post-production by Jeremy K. Gover. Voiceover by Chad Bennett.